Back in the day, Pokemon Snakewood was one of, if not the most infamous Pokemon ROM hack. But with amazing new ROMs coming out in recent time, how well could Snakewood look today? I'll choose some of the designs, remake them in a new style, and by the end of the video we'll find out the result. Starting simple before delving into chaos, let's take a look at Rock Lobster. A definition of don't judge a book by its cover, Rock Lobster has a base stat total of 645, while being a Dragon Rock type. And while we're here, let's also take a look at its Pokédex entry, which goes as follows. We were at the beach, everybody had matching towels. Somebody went under a dock, then they saw a rock. But it wasn't a rock, it was a rock lobster. After some simple research, turns out this fella is based on the group B52's song Rock Lobster. Pretty neat. Now that we got that out of the way though, let's redesign it in the Gen 5 style. Grabbing the original sprite to be as reference on the side, I start mapping out and creating a prototype for Rock Lobster's new design by making the perspective be very similar to how sprites usually are in the Unova games. Getting the perspective and an idea of how the design could end up looking, I get to adding in the colors, for which I take the ones in the original sprite and remix them to be with less saturation and being more balanced. After I split up the design in separated layers for easier animating further on, I get to applying lighting to the sprite, which starts to bring the whole design together. With color outlines applied, I dive straight into the animating process, which after creating a smooth, pleasant loop and some adjustments right after it, we can finally see how it would work in a newer game. Now that we got that out of the way, time to spice it up a bit. To make this more intriguing, for our next remake, let's do the mascot of the ROM hack, which is the alternate form of Muck, Yuck. Even though the game is initially heavily focused on zombie Pokemon, Yuck is only one of two evolution lines that are catchable in the game. As for typing, Yuck is a poison and the new disease type, which essentially just replaces the question mark type and has no weaknesses or resistances, while hitting every other typing for only neutral damage. Yuck has a base stat total of 520, but let's see what a Pokédex entry has to say. A creature composed only of the mingled blood of mucks and humans. Yuck eats as many people as it can to replenish its body, which it leaves behind it in a trail. Well, that's edgy 2010s ROM hacks for you. Now, time to get it remade. Sticking the original to the side and getting some of the sprites for Muck as reference, I start out by making a sketch of the new design, move everything around till it starts to look competent, rework the kid's disembodied head aspect, and turn it into a lure-like trap, which it accomplishes by blood magic or something. Alolan Muck has an ability called Power of Alchemy, so you can pull off some reaches with that concept, I guess. Some satisfying color filling in later, I also start making patterns similar to newer Muck and original Yuck. Play around with how the shading could work until I get a good outcome, make the outlines better, and boom! Time for animation. But before that, I make the canvas a bit bigger to have more space for animating, since, well, the sprite size got a bit out of hand. Oops. Almost an hour later, the animation and sprite itself is done. Time for results. Before getting to even more crazy, ridiculous old school designs, let's get the final semi-normal design done, except Yuck. Hopefully, it doesn't turn out to be anything bad, but Gosu Boa looks like a pretty neat design for something in a ROM hack like this. Its typing is Ghost Dark, base stat total is 462, but most interesting is the fact that you apparently can't find it in the game. Nor does it have a real dex entry, the only text being Error 623. Creature is not a Pokemon. This intrigued me quite a bit, so after seeing its species be called the Denju Pokemon, after a single search I learned that this design is from a Game Boy Color game called Ketai Denju Telefang, which is a monster collecting RPG game, and is also the origin of our pal Gosuboa here, even being a straight one-to-one copy. Didn't expect to find some intriguing trivia about this ROM hack, but time to turn this into a more original design for Snakewood. As you already know, I start out with the OG one as reference, creating an outline, sketch it out until I get results that looks good enough to continue working on. Changing up the colors to be more different and give it more of a Ghost Dark type vibe, I color the sprite and apply lighting to make it look more like a cloth. Extra polish and coloring outline later, I move on to the animation, for which I go with, of course, ghostly movement. Phasing in as a finished Gen 5 sprite, let's take a closer look. Before closing off with a literal abomination, let's move on to the Fakemon face Leech. Although clearly put together with parts from the Oxys, let's check it out before remaking it as a original design. Being a disease and poison type with a bizarre stat spread, that's 434 in total, finally let's see the Pokédex entry. It's a leechy sort of thing that sucks your face off. Really fast. Oh, and by the way, congratulations for discovering how to get it. If you're confused about the last part, it points to the fact that you need to breed a separate Fakemon called Turmur to get it, which without previous knowledge is pretty much impossible to find out yourself. To be honest, I easily had the most fun creating and animating this sprite out of all these horrid creatures. Well, that's mostly because it's a very simple design, but animating it was also quite fun due to it taking less time to fix each frame. As for the redesign itself, I went with a more dynamic pose to play into the fact that it ends up being animated. But also, I decided to mostly keep the exact same colors as the original, since you rarely get to see poison types other than the usual purple. Oh, and I guess you could say using some parts from Deoxys myself could play a part in it. As for the previously promised abomination, meet the ugly jumbled mess, which is literally called a monster, yet has Q-Charm as its only ability. Props to the devs for that one. Rocking a menacing 830 base stat total, clearly this thing is meant to be solely used for a boss fight. At least I think so. It's not available anywhere in the ROM hack, nor does it have a meaningful dex entry, except a line that reads, "This is horrible, just awful." Ugh. Well, time to make it something more than a stitched together mess of Gen 3 sprites. When thinking of a way to make it more unique, I go for a similar concept like Garbodor, but instead of random trash pieces, I stitch together and blend multiple aspects of Pokemon that appear in the original sprite to put together a design that features unique or noticeable things from each Pokemon, hence ending up with a result that not only consists of original concept while still having existing sprite components, but also it's a whole new Fakemon compared to the original monster. Oh, and I made the animation to be mostly just struggling with movement, since, well, can you imagine this thing trying to move around, while every other part has independent of other limbs itself? Yeah, pretty crazy. And that was me redesigning some of the most interesting designs from Pokemon Snakewood. After seeing all of these remakes, let me know which is your favorite original and redesigned Fakemon. Other than that, redesign the subscribe button down below and stay tuned for more great content.